Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our spin-off workshop. I hope everybody had a good break and weekend and well rested and ready to dive back into our topic. So I want to start. I want to start to this morning session the same way we started the last session. So with some short presentations by groups who did not present last time. So we had six people present last time, and the short presentation on the topic of what is innovative about your product, business model, technology. What is the painful problem that you're solving for customers? Some of the text to speech, not in translation,
Yeah.
not too good. So, but okay. So, who wants to go first this Monday morning? If nobody volunteers, we'll just pick somebody. Okay, since no volunteers, so Kim can pick somebody to go first.
Yeah, sure. It's very bit.
So in the meantime, while we're waiting for the first group to start, so how about does anyone have any questions? Oh, okay. How about this? Raise your hand if you did not present last time. Okay, so I see some raised hands. So how about Tron? You can go first.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Trung. So I'm trying to type my work first, but now let me present it. So our team, we are working on the Vietnamese speech to text for hospital. It's in medical section. The innovative idea here is that for medicals and in Vietnamese is quite a limited resource. the big company like Google and Apple work quite well on general context like speech to text, as we see in this Sci-Hub translate. But for medical, the data is quite limited, and it's not easy to access that kind of Vietnamese medical terms. So we are working with hospital, sign contract to build a data model, so that later on we can use it to train our AI model to translate the document or the conversation between doctors and patients into a text, so that they can submit to their system without manually write down the document for every section between doctor and patients like nowadays. So that is our product. So the business model, we think that we can start with the first hospital, and then we can sell the products for the other hospital in the same domain. Yeah, that is our product. Thank you.
So okay, thanks for sharing that. And then, so can you explain, like, again, what exactly is the product, just in one sentence?
Yeah, translate the no, transcript, actually, like the doctor speech, and then we translate into text.
So it's a translation?
Yeah, transcripting, maybe.
Oh.
Vietnamese speech to text, Vietnamese text.
Oh, Vietnamese speech to text.
Yeah.
But specifically for doctors?
Yes, because the problem is in the daily activity of doctors, they have to work a lot with patients. But if they have to just use the computer to type, or they have to write down in the paper, it takes time, and they don't have time for the patient. So now we want to use it like he just to speak with the patient, try to have the patient, and then the system will automatically transcript this thing into a text and put it in the system of the hospital as the medical record for that.
So okay, so yeah, can you give an example, like a use case? How would it work?
Yeah, so like that, let's say every morning, so the doctor had to visit on the patient in the hospital. So normally they have to go for each bed to visit the patient, and he will ask the patient how are you and what will be the symptom, and then he may give a prescription for that patient. And normally he have to type or write in the paper, and they have the secretary, the medical secretary, to have him to translate or put it in the computer. But now he just used a microphone with him, or a smartphone, and he just see the patient, and then make a conversation, a dialogue, and diagnose the patient, and then the system will translate it into a text, yeah, and give it to the computer system.
Okay, so he's a doctor talking to the patient, and then this product just makes a transcript of what text-to-speech transcript of what he said to the patient and puts into the patient's medical record.
Yes, that's it.
But yeah, okay, so I understand. Thank you. But aren't there lots of already text-to-speech apps available, even like many free apps, text-to-speech? Like, why do we need a special app for doctors? And it's, what's the difference?
Yeah, of course, this kind of model, they have a lot in the US and European country, but for Vietnamese, they have a big problem because we don't have enough resource to train the model. So up to now, they don't have any. We don't have any model that work on this kind of context, especially for medical, because it's quite special. The term here is totally different from the general text that available on the internet. Yeah, that is the difference.
So you're basically, so you're like collecting data to train an AI model.
Yeah, we can say that the key thing will be the data that we work with the hospital.
And then you have the AI model also. You have the AI program that learns from the data, or you just have the data?
Yeah, we actually we use the state-of-the-art model existing, but we retrain it with the data we have.
And then the data is proprietary to you?
Yeah, that is actually very important part, because the medical data is quite sensitive, and we have to sign contract and consent with the hospital to assess that kind of thing to train a model.
So you own the data, or the hospital owns the data?
Yeah, the model, the business model now is we work with the hospital, and we are in the same team. We work with one hospital, one big hospital.
Oh, just one hospital?
Yeah, a big one in Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah.
Hmm. So what's proprietary about this?
Yeah, finally, what we have a model, a trend for medical context of in Vietnam, and we will try to sell that product to other hospitals in Vietnam.
But okay, after you have the data and after you train the model on the data, then what does it do?
So a bit at the beginning, so the model will, like, if we don't have data, so the model just will translate the text, the speech to text, but they got a lot of error that is not usable, and we train it, and then later on we have a system that is like that runs smoothly, like the one we see in Google Translate or Siri or the others for medical context. That is the product.
Oh yeah, I get that. I understand that part, but then what's gonna be the use, of the data? Like, how will it be used?
Okay. Yeah, actually the data, we have to process it, to classify it, and we put it into the training process of the AI model. That we train it.
No, I get that part, but what's the AI going to do in the end? Is the AI going to recommend treatment, or is the AI what's it going to do?
Yeah, yeah, the AI just translate the speech to text and put it into a medical record, and that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, that will save time for the doctors in different contexts. Yeah, it's been, we can somehow reduce the documenting time of the hospital in total, in general.
Oh, I see. It just makes it, the end result is just update the medical record.
Yeah.
But how do they update? Who does it today?
Yeah, normally in the if they don't have any special thing, special system, the doctor have to write down in a paper, and they keep it somewhere. But now recently we have the ERP, enterprise resource planning, or the system to store document in the hospital. So they have to type it in the computer, and normally if they have no secretary that have them, the doctor have to do it on their own. Or some hospital, if they have enough resources, they will assign someone that have the doctor do it.
And then okay, So who buys? Your partner is the hospital, right?
Yes.
But the beneficiary, the who benefits is the doctor.
Yeah, the doctor, and maybe in the, yeah, we can say the hospital. Later on, if the system works smoothly, they can reduce the human resource for documentation process.
So, but how do they reduce the human resource?
Yeah, it's mean the doctor can just uh speak, and then it automatically generate the document, the record, without going to the other step from secretary, or the doctor had to type it manually. Because in the context of the doctor, they have to move around in hospital, around the different beds to visit the patient. They don't have the computer with them at the moment.
So I can see the doctor benefits, but I'm not sure how. I'm not sure why the hospital benefits, because but the hospital has to pay, right?
Yeah.
And then so hospital pays, but actually the doctor benefits. Like if I'm the hospital, why do I really care whether the doctor has to type in the or whether it's automatic? Because so saves the doctor time. Like, how do I make more money?
Maybe like we can say we can increase the performance of our doctors. I mean, he can visit, how he can have more patients in the same amount of time because he don't have to document, and then the hospital can serve many more patients.
But do the hospitals have like a shortage of patients now?
I
mean,
sorry.
The hospital have a lot. Are you saying like many beds in the hospital are empty because the doctors don't have enough time to get to the patient, and now they're going to have more time so we can fill up more beds?
Yeah.
But is that a problem that the hospital have? Like,
Yeah. Nowadays, what we can say is that we in Vietnam, or Ho Chi Minh City, we sometimes have shortage of doctor. The ratio between the doctor over patient is patient over doctor is quite small. So yeah, we need doctors.
okay, but this doesn't get me any new doctors. Anyway, I think you can see where I'm going with this. Like, it sounds like this is a good idea, but I think the challenge is going to be the benefit is for the doctor. The paying customer is the hospital. So we have to make a very clear business model so that the hospital clearly benefits, because otherwise since the doctor's not paying, it's easy for them. Hospital is paying and they don't see benefit. So I expect you're going to have to make a clear, what I would call clear value proposition for the hospital.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Actually, after discussing with you, it's not clear from the side of the hospital. Yeah, it's true.
So this happens a lot, and it definitely happens a lot with the medical products where what we see in this situation is there are several participants in the value chain here. Participants including the doctor, the hospital, maybe the medical assistant who's transcribing today. So
mới
wow. So we have to
10 giờ
think about
mới có 9 giờ, con kêu chị 2 giờ đi ăn sáng.
Sorry.
It's okay. So yeah, when we have multiple participants in the value chain, so we need to think about what's the benefit to each one. And I feel like we're on the way to doing that, but we want to work on that in more detail.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next. How about next? I see also with the hand up. RCHAA.
Yeah, correct.
So how about next? They go next.
Next is Mr. Huang.
Kim, are you talking about me?
Yeah, you raise your hand and
So I just came back from I just came back from a trip. So I'm not really well prepared for it, but I'm sure I can do it. Like, are you willing to let me try?
yeah, go ahead. And
Okay.
No need to prepare.
Okay.
Yeah. For everybody, there's nothing to prepare. Just, I guess everybody, my understanding, everybody in the program, everybody in this program, they have some product or service that they're looking to commercialize. So yeah, just explain, you can just explain like what's innovative about it, what's the, so explain what is your product, what's your innovative about it, and what's the customer pain that you're addressing.
Okay. So we're working on a product that benefit the farmer. Nowadays we use a lot of chemical fertilizer, and like the more chemical fertilizer we use, the more damaging we do to the soil. And a lot of time, like the nutrient uptake efficiency is not high. So our product we use at a very low volume. It regenerate the soil, improve the soil quality in a natural way. And when people use it, they can reduce fertilized application to 30%. It improves like plant health, so you can reduce the pesticide application. And we're looking to what is the word, to launch the product at a level global scale.
Okay, so the product is a fertilizer.
The product is a biostimulant. So when you apply it, it boosts the plant immune system, and then when the plant immune system is boosted, the plant has a better immune system toward like plant pathogen. So you reduce the pesticide. A side effect is that the plant release a lot of like exudate into soil and change the soil. And then the nutrient uptake efficiency is increased up to 30%. So you can reduce about 30% amount of fertilizer. That's basically the how it's work. It's a supplement, or you can call it a supplement for plant.
So it's okay, so the product is a biostimulant that boosts plant immune system.
Yeah.
It's like a supplement for plants.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so, and then who's the customer?
The farmer.
It's not the plants, right?
Yeah. The customer is the farmer or company.
So, okay, and then can you walk me through like a use case?
Let's say you have a corn farm for about 250 acres. And you use like X amount of fertilizer, like which is a lot. When you apply this product, you can reduce you can reduce about like 20% of pesticide that you have to apply on a normal basis, and the amount of fertilizer can reduce 30%. In some case, we recognize that on some crop, even though if you reduce the amount of fertilizer, the yield is increased too. so it offset the price of the product. We test the
So-
product in,
Good.
yeah.
Okay, so I can apply this product to my corn, and then I can use less fertilizer and less pesticide and get the same or even more output.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then how does it work?
So in our laboratory, we have a group. We screen for multiple kind of like pathogen, and we found like what molecule on the those pathogen can stimulate the plant, and we found we found it on like natural compound, and we mimic it with a lower price. So when we spray those compound, it has like a similar effect like a pathogen. So the plant thought that it's pathogen, the plant respond to it.
So I have to spray my corn with a pathogen?
No. A compound that's similar to the one on the pathogen. I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive to produce the pathogen. So we found something similar.
So is it like a vaccine?
Yeah, you can think of it that way. Yes.
So it's like it causes the plant's immune system to respond as if it's encountering a pathogen, which it has some like vaccination like effect.
Yeah, it's not that specific, but it's broadband.
Yeah. And then, okay. And then, how do I know, like when I spray the plant now, but I'm not going to recognize the benefit until later, right? Because right now I have to spray it. I have to buy this and spray it on the plants, but then, and I have to now wait to see that my fertilizer cost is reduced and that my pesticide cost is reduced, because that's going to happen over what period of time?
About 2 months.
So I buy now, I spray, and I realize the benefit after 2 months.
Yeah.
And then how do I know that there's not going to be some impact on the quality of the corn later, or the taste, or anything?
Oh, so there will be scientific, that there will be white paper. There will be rumor spreading around the customer who already tested. I mean in Vietnam, I think people still have a little belief in scientists. So
And oh, okay, so that's good. And then what about, is the corn now like genetically modified though? Is this like GMO corn?
no, it doesn't matter what crop you apply. Doesn't matter what crop you apply. It worked pretty much the same way, pretty universal. We're trying to find universal compound, and I think most importantly, back to your previous question, I think we're gonna patent it. So that's gonna make sure people trust it.
So you applying for a patent?
We are writing it, yes.
And so that okay, so the patent process is underway.
Yeah.
And then but wait, is GMO or not GMO?
It's a liquid compound.
Okay.
And you can spray it on pepper, on rice, on corn.
Okay, but wouldn't it take some time to determine that there's no side effect? Like, since we have to wait till people like eat this corn and then see if anybody gets sick, or, I mean, has that been done already, or that's going to be done, or what?
I don't think this has to be done, to be honest. Even though if people like, we would like to test it too. But the mechanism is natural. It's like probiotic. You don't think eating yogurts would make you sick, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can imagine like people might have some concern, like, yeah, like reason, like, let's say logical or reasonable or not, like, oh, I spray this thing on my corn, and then it's a new thing that I spray on the corn, and later people are going to eat it. Do I have to worry about that? So, but yeah, I think definitely get the patent, and some scientific study is going to be helpful. But I worry, like, could there still be some hesitancy? I mean, or are the corn farmer, they're already spraying lots of stuff on the corn, and maybe they don't, one more thing doesn't matter, or
it's natural compound, so I don't think it's gonna have any side effect.
maybe it's healthier than what they're currently spraying?
I would say so, yes, definitely.
Yeah, like what do they spray now?
For now, for pesticide, you name it. There's a lot of like nasty stuff. Those, so let's say, those compound, it's totally natural, and I don't think people would concern it, even though there's report coming back to us saying that those product taste much better, because when the plant is stressed, they taste much better.
When the plant is stressed or not stressed?
When the plant, when you spray it with this compound, it stressed the plant out a little bit. It's kind of like the way vaccine work. And when the plant is like the immune system is boosting up, you have more compound, you have more flavor, especially in indoor production. It worked wonderfully. For lettuce, the taste is different.
Oh, okay. It tastes better.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that's all the questions that I have. So thank you very much, and good job. Let's go to next.
Can I have question for the Richard?
Oh, great. Yeah, question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hữu Hoàng Nguyễn, I want to ask you about your product can protect the plant, special to disease or anything, something like that.
It's not specific. It's not specific. So it's like you have a lime that growing organically, or an orchard that you keep you manage them in an organic manner. Disease pressure will be lower in general.
On what kind of disease?
So we tested it on pepper. It does have lower pressure with Phytophthora. Yeah, that's on top of my mind. Other than that, let's see. Yeah, I don't have other specific data on disease pressure.
This means you have not experience on black pepper yet, right?
We did.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this is like a leaf fertilizer. You spray on the leaf, right? Or you water on root.
It's a foliar. It's a foliar solution. You spray on the foliar system.
Okay.
Because the Phytophthora on the leaf. You spray on the leaf.
Yeah. Because the Phytophthora is attacked under the root of the black pepper.
Yeah.
So it's something different. Yeah. I think interesting. I think it's very interesting with your product, but we need to do the experiment on specific disease or something. I think that's good. So good.
Yeah, more research is for sure. We're gonna have to conduct more research for and you know what, like we know that Phytophthora is on the root, not on. We spray on the leaf. Yes, when you take tablet, you take it into the mouth, even though your mouth have no problem, right? So delivery, I mean, the way you deliver it and the mechanism is linked. So if the immune system of the plant is boosted on the whole plant level and in a systemic level, you have that effect everywhere. that I have to say that we have to do more research on this type of product. Yes, I agree.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and thanks for the additional question. Who's going to go? Yeah, so anybody else, participants, feel free to ask questions. And next, who's next?
Next we have Nam Lam or you or Wellington University. So either can start if you guys were ready.
Better pick one, otherwise somebody's not going to start. Just tell them who
Okay.
has to.
All right. Nam Lam University. We have some groups in Nam Lam University. Yeah. How about Medical University?
Wait.
BUČI University, please start your presentations.
We had no idea. Mr. Dulat and Mr. Kim, we try to learn from the other company, and we try to learn how to make the spin off from the university. Thank you.
Oh, let's say this group has not working on specific idea, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so go to the next one.
How about Global ECP and Lab? Bị tắt tiếng rồi anh mở mic.
Okay, see. I have planned that the IT platform for agriculture. So now in Vietnam, my platform try to do that people can change their product because of COVID. Now they cannot do delivery, can make delivery. So it's also difficult for me to make I think that is like a large project because like that is an ecosystem for agriculture. It's not only for planning, it's also for planting or material for planting. It's also for logistics. It's also for selling. It's also for stock processing, exporter. Many things, many application in this platform. They can connect many. My main job that is I create a hub for many application can connect via API. So I also prepare some data like Espera give us the model. So I can how I explain, I don't know, but I can give but the plan here. So Ms. Kimberly helped me to take a look and explain more, because I'm not so good to make a project. We only try to do like in model only. Is okay? May I share the screen here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I cannot share my project here.
Yeah, you can share now.
Okay. Okay, you can see it? Oh, not yet. You can see it now?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I make a summary like this. I also follow about Express model, so I try to do this. It the pen in agriculture now in Vietnam, that we have some climate change, because before you remember my partner explained that he technical, so he explained different, but I explained the pen like this: change climate, hotter shortage, long radiation, post-harvest cell. Okay. Function model that we can control, supply some tool for farming plant, harvest, processing, because most of agricultural product in Vietnam, they do not know how to make the plan for selling. Most of them, farmer, they produce and then they sell. Nobody can make the order in the future with the same quality, like they require about BUQI standards or global gap or organic. Most of farmers don't know, and we also don't know where can produce this product. So we try to do this platform that when we get the order from the buyer, we can plan for them where can plant the organic products or global gap products, something like that. And factory can know the product they can purchase and to process with their own plant. And at that time, the farmer can sell on this platform. They do not need to sell through more the purchaser or more via the buyer, middle buyer. That's for logistic. We also calculate about how many factory how many farm can supply their product to one factory with about the detailed distance. We calculate for them also. This model, you can see, we do many application. So this application we cooperate, we do by ourselves for this platform, and we write by our language, the Vietnamese language. We also supply some service in this platform also. We also have finance, delivery, many things. That's it. We also make clear, transparent on data for the investor or for partner to consider about their project. They can invest or to make decision by themselves. clarify everything. And also for distributor and e-commerce, like a hub, we supply for them. We can share and we can get the money by when they rent our service, or they can buy by themselves. Okay, this is some for more information about this project. That in about selling model. That we like a supply chain or ecosystem in agriculture, we need a time about 5 years to 10 years to finish on. But the first step, we have some trial and some practice now. Okay, that is a circle. And this is some application that we supply to farmer, to cooperative, to state organization. They can control and they can collect data, everything. The first step, for getting data, we most of give them the free service. They only pay for us about the cloud, the storage only. The service we supply free, because we try to get the data. Most of farmer in Vietnam is about 10 million people, 10 million farmer. And we focus on what product we can export, because now in Vietnam there are 10 products export more than $1 billion US already. But they have a quantity, but about quality is not so good. So we supply this platform to improve the quality for the export market. And the first step, second step, 3 steps. I can send this plan to you, and you can show us more detail, because it's not enough time to explain our plan here. And we also try how to get the money. One user, how we can get about turnover, everything after 1 year, 2 years. The model for business. This is a model for logistics. They also need our data for their logistics also, because when we harvest or planting, the truck or logistics can understand about the need about the logistics also. We also calculate, because we divide many applications, and we get the money from each application, depend on the user, which application they need, they will pay. This for distributor. Storage also, we different.
Okay, no, so this is really good. Let's I think I'm going to jump in, because I want to focus for now on just the first 2 questions. So this is a very detailed presentation. So thanks a lot. But let's talk about the 2 questions. So just very briefly, what's the innovation?
This is an innovation that we can connect most of data between application, because more of application they can not connect together now in Vietnam.
So it's like it's a platform for farmers, or what? Like very simple. What is? Just tell me what it is.
That is for the whole supply chain. The whole supply chain, that means farmer only need about application for farm only. but farm also need to buy material, but also want to sell their product, but they don't know how to sell and don't know how to buy material for their farm. We supply that.
So it's a platform or application, not just for the farmer, but for the whole value chain, agriculture value chain.
Yes, right.
But who's the first customer?
The first customer, that's the farmer, and the second customer, that is the buyer in Ho Chi Minh City. First, for the first step,
The buyer
we use
buyer is the consumer of food.
Buyer, that is Horeca or shop or wet market or modern market.
Oh, like a wholesale buyer.
Yeah, wholesale buyer. And we use also blockchain, and we also create one coin, digital coin in there, because now in Vietnam, most of people don't have money. They have product, they have labor, they have a cost, they have experience, but now very difficult to lend from the bank. So create platform that they contribute there, and then we use the coin, one coin, digital coin, they can believe to contribute. That is also we use blockchain also.
And then what's the most important problem that you solve for the farmer?
Pardon?
What's the most important problem that you solve for the farmer?
The farmer now, they don't have money to buy the material like fertilizer, for rent labor, for many things, and nobody know about the quality from farmer. So we supply the application that the buyer can understand about the quality of products the buyer produce, and the supplier for material, they can supply, and they believe that after the harvest, after the season, they can get back their money, because they cannot give credit for farmer.
So you provide credit for farmers?
Most of suppliers, they give a credit, because more fertilizer or labor, they wait till after the season, after harvest, they will get back the money. At that time, the buyer pay the money, the farmer will pay for this material supplier.
So you're helping to facilitate credit for the farmer?
Supplier, now in Vietnam, most of supplier, fertilizer supplier, they give credit for farmer, but they also afraid the farmer cannot pay back for them. So we supply the system that help them to supply credit.
Okay. And then what about for the wholesaler? What's the major problem that you solve for them?
The wholesaler also gather in this system also, because depend on their market. They can export to Europe market or to US or to another market. They require high quality and high standard. So we can devise and give them which farm or which land achieve the requirement. Organic or global gap or something, the wholesaler can buy directly from farm or from cooperative or from the connector.
Oh, you're in mute.
Oh, I said that's it. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's very interesting and a lot of detail. So let's go to the next group.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is NSSC. Anh stop share screen được rồi, anh làm.
Dạ, cảm ơn.
Next is NSSC. If you know, then Bình Định, Ministry of Science Technology. Sở Công nghệ Bình Dương có đây không ạ? Trung tâm Khoa học Công nghệ Bình Phước.
I can hear the rooster in the background there.
Yeah, he keeps shouting.
Maybe they
every
want to.
day.
Maybe he wants to present.
Oh, I just texted in the group and see who present here and didn't present last time can start present, and still no response.
Just move to the next one then.
Yeah, I already moved to 3 or 4 next. Trung tâm ứng dụng tiến bộ khoa học công nghệ Sở tỉnh Sóc Trăng có đây không?
Anh Kim sáng thứ hai anh Kim đang bận họp lắm anh Kim. Thông cảm nha, mình cũng đang có một cái công việc khác, vừa lắng nghe phải vừa làm việc vừa làm báo cáo khác luôn.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we have questions. The market for functional foods and cosmetic is huge and very competitive. Our product are always new and diverse, but if commercialized, it is short-lived. Please advise for the business in this field. This is one of the last presenter last session.
Okay, so the question is about market. So it says market for functional food and cosmetic is huge and competitive. Our products are always new and diverse, but if commercialized, it's short-lived. Please advise for business in this field. So this means that in the past, the products have been new and diverse, but not generating a lot of traction. Short-lived means they don't really survive in the market for long. Is that right? I mean, one general advice, I think, if you're a, let's say, small company, or if you're a new company, you don't want to get into a huge and competitive market. Then I think, if the products are short-lived, then even though you have new and diverse products, then probably you're going into the wrong market. I mean, why focus on a market that's huge and competitive? So that would be my question. If the market is huge and competitive, and you're launching products, but they're not they don't have long life, why continue to focus on those markets? Because choosing the market is hugely important for small company, new company, startup, or spinoff. So for especially like spinoff, you don't want to focus on a huge competitive market. If the challenge is that all your products are developed in functional food and cosmetic, then I think what you would want to do is re-segment the market, so you're focusing on a much smaller segment that's less competitive. So you look for, typically, if our overall market is huge and competitive, then you want to identify or create a new segment where that segment is not so huge and there's little competition in that segment, so that you can become the market leader in that segment. Then your strategy is to own that segment first. You become number one in this new segment, and then you retain that position, hold on to that position, and now you try to do the same thing in a adjacent segment. So now you're launching a new product into another new segment, and you become number one in that segment. So I think if you're a spinoff or a startup company launching new products into huge, competitive, and undifferentiated markets, then yeah, definitely all those products are going to fail, because there's no way that you're going to compete with all of the players in a huge, undifferentiated market, like, for example, like cosmetics. I think I mentioned this in the previous talk. You go into one of the, like a Sephora, there are thousands of products in there, and most of those products come from well-established brands, and I think customers tend to go first to well-established brands. So just launching your new product undifferentiated into a market like that, into the mass market, it's just going to fail pretty much every time. So if that's what you're encountering, I think the challenge here is you need to identify a new, either new market segment, or you need to re-segment the market so that you're able to compete in a segment where you have a chance to be market leader, instead of becoming one of, you know, the 1,001st product into a market that already has 1,000 products. And then food also is very difficult because, I mean, both of these markets are hugely difficult for spin-offs or startups because one, yeah, huge and competitive. Two is distribution. So the distribution channels for these cosmetic and functional food, if you're going into retail, they're already very crowded channels, and the existing players defend the channel space very aggressively. So maybe you need to think about, can we do this? Maybe you're distributing online. So anyway, I would say the main recommendation here is look at a different market. Don't launch into undifferentiated mass markets with a spin-off or startup. You need to either identify an underserved segment or you need to resegment the market yourself.
Oh, I have another question from the group. Is that is this similar to gaming industry where the publisher need to publish every game all the time?
So what was that?
The question is about similar to gaming industry where the publisher need to publish all games and people can download the game, similar to the market, similar characteristic, or is different from the gaming industry?
Oh, so which market are we comparing to the gaming industry? Cosmetic?
Food and cosmetic. Yeah, correct.
So I think, yeah, gaming, it's also very competitive. And I think, but a good thing about gaming is there are now more and more online distribution channels for gaming, like Steam. So you can, there is some space for independent game producers in the gaming market versus, I think, better than cosmetics or food to some degree. If you remember, for example, you know, Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird was a hugely popular mobile game created by independent game studio right here in Vietnam, which was really, I think, just one or maybe two people. So it is possible, still possible to create I think a successful game as a small company or a small independent game development studio. And there are more and more platforms for distribution of games. If you look in VR, in the VR space, there are plenty of independent or small or independent companies that are making pretty successful VR games, VR, AR. I would see even in the online games, there's more space for independent game producers. So I think game is a much better market right now for spin-offs or startups than functional foods and cosmetics, because at least there are more, by definition. I mean, in that market, most of the distribution channels are online, so you don't have to fight for space in physical distribution. And the differentiation is on the content. So content and people. Basically, I think what makes successful game companies are the people on the team and the content that they develop. And this is where it's more possible for smaller companies to compete with established players, because the barriers to entry for game development companies are a lot less than food and cosmetics. Like, the problem in cosmetics is brand. The brand is such an important factor in customer selection, in customer choice. For games, I think brand doesn't matter that much. I don't think most gamers are buying games based on the brand that produced the game. I think they're buying based on the content of the game and the user reaction to the game. So I think there is a lot more space for independent producers in game than in cosmetics or functional food. Okay, so wait, so is it fair to say that we reached that point where nobody else is ready to present, or we have anybody else left to present?
Yeah, we have some, sorry, we have some teams left, but I don't think they are ready to present today.
Not ready.
Yeah, and some people are in a meeting weekly as well. So.
Okay. One point I would make is, like, if you really want to be successful spin-off or startup, you need to be ready to present at all times. So when you meet an investor and they ask you to present, I mean, you can't say we're not ready. I mean, you can say we're not ready and we'll present next time, but that means you're not going to get investment from that investor. So, okay, but let's say, we'll accept that everybody who wants to present about their product is now had a chance to present. So let's go to my content then. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, you can see my screen now, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so first topic I'll talk about this morning is financial modeling. This is what a financial model of a company, including a startup, typically looks like. We create what's called a pro forma financial model, which I like to see including 5 years of projected balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement. And I like to project from bottom up and top down, which I'll talk about more in a minute, focusing on our revenue growth, and also as a important consequence of creating this model, we'll be able to project our cash requirements and formulate a detailed budget. So before I go into a little more detail about financial model, I want to talk about the whole concept underlying financial modeling. In the financial modeling, by definition, we are creating a model of our company. So what's a model of our company? Why is it useful? And how are we going to use it? The difference between a model of something and the thing being modeled is one of complexity. So the thing being modeled will be more complex, and the model that we'll produce of that thing will be less complex. If we want to put in positive term, the model that we create of anything is a simplification of something that's complex and difficult to understand. So why do we create models? We create models so that we can better understand complex systems. And complex systems are difficult to analyze because they're complex. And one way to achieve some sort of meaningful insight when we analyze a complex system is to build a model of it. So I think everybody's familiar with for example, model airplane. And when an aircraft company builds a new airplane, the first thing they create is a model of that airplane. They don't build the real airplane first. Why is that? Because it's very costly, expensive, and takes a lot of time to build the final actual airplane. And that actual airplane needs to fly, and it needs to fly safely. So first step, we want to build the model of the plane, and the model that we build of the plane won't be the actual plane. First of all, it's going to be smaller, in this case, smaller than the real plane. And second, it's going to be less complex than the real plane. It won't include all the parts. It'll be built of likely different materials. So let's say one of the first things that we want to test about this plane is the aerodynamics. We have changed the design of this plane versus previous planes, and we want to see how does it respond to different, for example, flight conditions or wind conditions. So we can build a model of the plane, and then what we extract from the actual plane are the characteristics of the plane that directly affect its aerodynamics. Then we put the model plane into the wind tunnel, and we can see how it flies. And we can do this without going through the whole process of producing, building, and then flying a real new aircraft, which can cost hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. So we can reasonably inexpensively produce this plane model, and then we can test it in wind tunnel and see how it performs. This is the exact same process that we go through with our financial model. And you can see the analogy. We want to create a spin-off company or startup company, and we want to know, how is this company likely to perform? How will this company possibly perform? And just like we want to test the airworthiness and aerodynamics of our airplane before we put people in it and then take it up into the sky and put them in potentially dangerous situation. So we want to do the same thing with our spin-off idea. We want to test out the concepts that we have for this spin-off, and we want to stress test them in a model situation before we have put a tremendous amount of money on the line. So that's what our financial model is designed to do. Our financial model is designed to create a simulation of our spin-off or startup company, and then subject it to some simulated financial environments, and then see how does the model company perform. And if the model company isn't performing up to expectation, then we can adjust the model company a lot more easily than we can adjust a real company. And we can learn and gain important insights about our startup or spin-off company idea through this process of effectively building a scale model of the startup or spin-off company before we launch. And if we take a minute to reflect on what we're trying to do with the modeling process. So in the modeling process, we're trying to reduce the complexity, simplify the real thing, which in this case is a company, and build a meaningful model of it. In order for our model to be meaningful, this means we need to extract the right aspects of the company into our model so that the model tells us something important about the way that the company is going to perform under real market conditions. So how can we do that? We need to decide what are the most important aspects of the company to incorporate in our model so that the model, when tested, gives us reasonable output about the financial viability and attractiveness of the company. So a real company is a very messy affair with many different parts and components that all work together. And we need to select a small number of those to begin our model. In fact, we need to start by selecting what will be the most important input into our model. I like to think of this as the backbone of the model. So in our case, we're going to select revenue as the backbone of our model. Meaning whenever we build one of these financial projection models for a company, we're going to begin with the forecast revenue forecast. Because I like to do a 5-year model, we're going to begin with a 5-year revenue forecast. Now, you might wonder, well, why select revenue? Why not some other aspect of the company to build our model around? The reason is that in most companies, the most important driver of the financial results of the company will be revenue. And there are a few exceptions to this, in which case, if we're running an exception company, then we'll select different backbone for the model. But a vast majority of companies, revenue is the most important number in the financial performance. And revenue, it's also called sales. So sales and revenue are the same thing. Now, why is revenue the most important number in the financial performance of the company? Because revenue drives everything else. If you think about what do we want to know about the company when we do a financial model? First, we want to know what are the sales, then we want to know what are the expenses, and then we want to know what are the profits, and then we want to know what are the cash flows. So those are typically the 4 pieces of information that we're trying to get from either input into or get out of our financial model. The revenue, the expenses, the profit, and the cash flows. And if you visualize the relationship between those elements, revenue is the start. Because why? Obviously, if there's no revenue, there's no profit and no cash flow. So revenue drives at least 2 of the other 3 items in the forecast. And typically expenses are also related to revenue. Because why? Because in 2 directions. One is that normally expenses are funded by revenue. So in order to pay for our expenses, we need to have money coming into the company, and money comes into the company most frequently from revenue. And 2 is that the level of our expenses is generally commensurate with our revenue. Why? For a couple of reasons. One obvious reason is, let's say, putting aside investment for a second, we can't have more expenses than we have revenue in a particular month without losing money. So if our monthly expenses exceed our monthly revenue, we're going to be losing money. And 2 is typically we can't generate revenue without expenses, because revenue doesn't come for free. We don't get sales for free. We have to pay for sales through basically marketing, advertising, and sales expense, customer acquisition. So revenue and expense are, in the vast majority of companies, are very closely related, and they're related in somewhat predictable ways. Okay, so if you think about it this way, the simplest possible model that we can build, financial model that we can build of most companies is consists of 5 data points: the revenue 1 year from now, revenue 2 years from now, revenue 3 years from now, etc. So I always like to think about, as we get started on our financial modeling journey, that the simplest model that we can create and the beginning of our model is going to be our 5 forecasted revenue points. Now, if we start by approaching our financial model that way, it also helps us to understand the second most important concept in modeling. So first most important concept in modeling is to understand that a model is a reduction in complexity or a simplification of something in the real world that we're trying to understand better. And the second most important concept in financial modeling that we need to understand before we begin our financial modeling journey is the probability that the relationship between our model and reality. So we already discussed that we're doing the financial model because we want to understand something about the real world. In this case, the something in the real world is our proposed startup or spin-off company. And what we want to understand about it is its potential financial performance. So what is the relationship between our model and the real world? We extract these key data points, which are our 5-year revenue forecast. And now I want to think for a minute about after we've done that. So we have, let's say we have built our model, we have generated our 5-year financial forecast, and we can think about that, those 5 data points arrayed in a XY space. So we have a XY, let's say we have a PowerPoint slide that just shows our 5-year financial performance. On the X-axis are the years. So the first point on the X-axis is 2021, or let's say at this point, maybe 2022, and second point is 2023. And then on the Y-axis is our level of revenue. So how much revenue we're going to produce. So we can put a dot at the intersection of each of those X and Y axes. We get now 5 data points, and then we can connect those data points with a line. So now our very simple financial model consists of a curve. It's a curved line that stretches from left to right across our PowerPoint slide. That's our very simple, most basic financial model. Everything else in our model is going to flow from that. So looking at this line, what is the probability that this curve is correct? What is the probability that our financial model is going to be correct? Okay, my argument is the probability that our financial model is going to be correct is 0. Our financial model will always be wrong. Now, what do I mean by that? Meaning, let's say 5 years from now, after we produce this financial model, we want to go back, and we're going to go back and check how closely did our financial forecast match what happened in the real world. And the probability that it's going to match is 0. Why? Because if you go back to and think about these this curve in XY space, what are the total number of possible curves that I could draw in this XY space? It's infinite. And my forecast is one curve among this infinite series of curves that I could have drawn or that could be drawn. And that means the probability that my curve is going to be the same as the actual curve is 1 divided by infinite, which is 0. So that's the second most important thing that we need to understand about financial projections before we start doing them. What we need to understand is that the financial projections we're going to do are never going to be correct, meaning they're never going to match what's going to happen in the future. And this is should be obvious, because why? Because nobody can predict the future. The future is unknowable, and therefore our financial model can't predict the future any better than anyone or anything else can predict the future. So that might leave you with an unsettled feeling. Maybe you're thinking, wow, we're going to spend a lot of time building this financial forecast. And if any of us have tried to build a financial forecast, we know that this is an extremely time-consuming process. So why do we want to spend so much time building a financial forecast that we know is going to be incorrect? So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and we're going to take a short break now. So it's 10:05, your 11:05 my time, and 10:05 your time. So let's take a short 10-minute break, and we will resume at 11:15 my time, 10:15 your time, and we'll talk a little bit more about why should we do our financial forecast knowing that it's going to be incorrect. Okay, so 10-minute break now, and I will see you back here at 10:15 your time. See if you can if anybody can come up with an answer to that question. We'll discuss that at the beginning of the next session. Okay, so I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good break and had some time to think about the question that I posed before the break, which was, why would we spend so much time and effort? Why do we want to spend so much time and effort on our financial model if it's not going to be correct? Let me just share my slides. So, although this might sound like a contradiction or conundrum, why should we do a financial model that we know is going to be incorrect? And the reason is that we actually, the definition of correctness that I introduced in that question is not the reason that we do financial models, or shouldn't be the reason that we do financial models. We shouldn't do our financial model believing that our financial model is going to predict what's going to happen in the future. This is a big mistake. And it's the reason that I like to bring this up whenever I start discussing financial models with startups or entrepreneurs, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs can get confused about that and think, well, this financial model does predict what's going to happen or has a pretty good chance of predicting what's going to happen. That's mistake one. Or the entrepreneur thinks this financial model is just nonsense. It doesn't predict what's going to happen in the future, and therefore it's not important. Both of those perspectives are wrong, because they misunderstand the role of financial modeling in our financial plan and our investor pitch for this startup. Financial models are important even though they don't predict the future, because financial model should be designed to prove a very important point about our business plan. Where, let's say we're proposing to do a spin-off with a particular business model, and we're proposing this to investors with an underlying investment proposition that this company can deliver the investors' required return. And investors in companies like this have very high expected returns. And the going in assumption for any startup or any company is that it's not possible for a company to deliver the investors' required return, because the vast majority of companies don't achieve returns sufficient for venture investors. So this is what our financial projection is designed to address. The financial projection is designed to show that our financial model has the potential, that our company has the potential to achieve the required return. And that's the desired output from our financial model. Not a prediction of what's going to happen in the future, but a proof that this company with this business model can actually generate the required return. And that's a really important output from a financial model. So make sure that you understand before you begin financial modeling, what are we trying to prove with our financial model, and make sure that your financial model proves that, because otherwise investors, when they review the financial model, are not going to be interested in investing. Okay, so I mentioned that we want to start out with the 5-year revenue forecast, but let's look first why the startup, why does it need a financial model? And why does the startup founders have to own their financial model? If you look at it this way, as a startup or spin-off founder, you need to have two fundamental strategies: your strategy for product market fit and your strategy for financing your company to achieve this product market fit. So the vast majority of startup founders and spin-off founders come from the product market fit side. And this is perfectly understandable and makes total sense, because most people want to do a spin-off or a startup because they're knowledgeable, experienced, and passionate about a particular product, not because they're coming from financial services. So, however, both of these strategies are equally important for the company's success. If you don't have good product market fit, you're obviously going to fail. But if you don't have a good financing strategy, you're also maybe less obviously, but still going to fail. As a management team in your spinoff or startup, you can't outsource either one of these strategies. You can't outsource your product. Obviously, you're not going to outsource your product market fit. And just as obviously, you shouldn't be outsourcing your financing strategy. You can't count on accountant or bookkeepers to do this. Accountants don't create financing strategies for companies. CEOs and CFOs create financing strategies for companies. Accountants just help you to account for those strategies. So you need to have two strategies as a startup or spin-off founder, and you need to be the owner of those two strategies. And in order to own your financing strategy, you need to own your financial model. So even if you've never done a financial model before, even if you're very hesitant about financial knowledge or financial modeling, don't worry. You're going to need to put in some work, but this work will be amply rewarded when you master your financing strategy and are therefore able to have meaningful discussions with investors about this. So I mentioned that we're going to start our financial model with our revenue forecast. So, but how to do the revenue forecast? This is not obvious or easy. To do a revenue forecast for especially a new company with a new product in potentially a new market, it's not something that is going to be easy or obvious how to do. And even worse than that, you remember the purpose of our financial model is to prove that this company with this business model can actually achieve investors' required return. And therefore, the revenue forecast that we create, although we shouldn't expect it to be correct, because remember, correctness is not the key to a good financial forecast, but it needs to prove that our investment proposition makes sense. And in order for it to prove that our investment proposition makes sense, it does need to be justifiable. So it doesn't need to be correct, but it needs to be justifiable, and it needs to hold up to challenging and difficult questioning. Because definitely one of the topics and one of maybe the first topics that you can expect that investors are going to challenge in your financial plan is your revenue forecast. So you need to be able to justify the revenue forecast, and you need to be able to stand up to investor questioning and challenging about your revenue forecast. How to do that? I like to do this by modeling our revenue forecast in two ways. The first way I call top down, and the second way I call bottom up. And the reason we're going to model in two ways is there are several reasons why we're going to model in two ways. The first is that by modeling the same series of numbers using two separate and hopefully independent methods should help us to come to a single output that is internally, externally consistent, and also strong, and therefore possible to justify. And in addition to giving us a high quality result, using the two methods together gives us better output from each one, because each method serves as a reality check on the other method, which gives us a way to arrive at a much better solution to this 5-year forecasting problem than if we relied only on one method. So let's see, I think the easiest way to understand that is to see it in process, see an example of how it would actually work. So I think the best way to do this is let's pick one of our projects to use as an example in top-down and bottom-up market sizing. So who wants to use their project? Just volunteer, and then we'll use your project for this example. You don't have to, I'm not going to make you do it, so don't be scared that you're going to have to talk or do anything. But we'll just use your project as an example, and I'll ask you a couple of questions about it, and we'll use that to build top-down and bottom-up revenue model. It's actually very beneficial for you if you're trying to do something like this yourself. It should help you a lot. Okay, so who wants to use their project for example? Or let's see, I can go back to my list also. I can pick one of the projects. Okay, so if nobody's going to volunteer, I'll just choose myself. Okay. Let's say, how about the company that did skin from mushroom? Is the skin from mushroom team here?
Oh, I don't see them here.
Oh, not here? How about the high power lithium battery? Is that team here?
I don't think so.
So what, everybody that presented last time was too scared to come today in case they have to present again? Okay.
Okay, how about bioorganic?
Wait, who is that?
Oh, it's bioorganic.
Oh, bioorganic. Okay, good. So wait, which was your product was doing the bio, which one was biocompost?
Compost.
Okay, great.
Biocompost. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for volunteering. So let's do biocompost. So, okay, so what's the, now, when we do the top down, we're going to start with total addressable market. So what's the total addressable market for biocompost?
The total market. What does this mean? You, the question, huh? This
Oh,
mean.
okay. Okay, good. So when we think about the market for our product, so I like to look at it this way. Customers that would buy your product, what are they currently using?
So currently using our product for plant.
Oh no, they're using another product, right? Like the customers that would buy your product, they're currently using another product.
Yeah, they're also using other products from other company at the moment.
Okay, so what type of product is that?
The type of product is similar. Also the compost, not bio. It's compost. They are not bio inside.
Okay, so they're buying compost. They're buying regular compost. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we
usually they use the compost only. The bio is being here inside the microorganism inside together with the compost I missing inside. And that's a product. When
okay. So let's say they're currently buying compost. So then we can say the total addressable market is the compost market. So we're targeting customers who buy compost. Is it correct?
Yes, the farmer or the grower can buy the compost from market easily.
So okay, so if I don't, like, for example, if I never buy compost, I'm not going to be interested in your product. If I do buy compost, I may be interested in your product, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So we can, so that's what we call total addressable market. So the total addressable market for this product is people who want to buy compost.
Yes.
Okay. So that's step one. So step two is now we want to figure out how big is that market? So, and I like when we figure out when we figure out how big is that market, I want to do the market size, not based on number of people, but on how much they are spending. So we need to get total addressable market, we're going to start with what is the amount of money that is currently being spent on compost. Now, are you targeting a specific geographic market?
Yes, I focus on the agriculture plants.
Oh, how about the geography?
The
Like
geography, I think geography is okay because compost can suitable for any geography. But the question here, I think also for the soil, it had the poor soil. We can say poor soil is better than with the nutrient soil. I think it's a little bit compost, but the poor soil is the high vulnerable compost.
Oh, so let's come back to that. Let's hold that thought and we'll come back in a minute. So, but let's say first is geography. So let's say, okay, yeah, everybody can use compost, but let's say our target market is, our total addressable market is, for example, let's just say Southeast Asia, because it's very difficult to small company to target the whole world. So let's pick one region, but still big region, Southeast Asia. So now, yeah, so, okay, so let's say our total addressable market is going to be the total spending on compost in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so how big do you think that number is?
The number is depend on the it has to depend on the custom. The total compost import to Vietnam, for example, or the total the compost volume of the company in Vietnam to sell. So here in Vietnam at the moment it's 1 year. I found that it's about over 100,000 tons, over 100,000 tons of a year in Vietnam.
Oh, okay, and then can we translate that into dollars?
Yeah. 1 ton is here. 1 ton is about calculate. Yeah, it's about 1,000. Sorry. Wait. Somebody. It's about 1 ton is about 300 US dollar.
Okay, and total tons is how much?
The total ton is 100,000, over 100,000.
Okay, so multiply together, get what?
Yep. It's about 30.14 million.
30 million.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with that. We'll change total addressable market to Vietnam. So let's say we'll call total addressable market initially is Vietnam compost market, and that number is 30 million.
Yep.
Okay, so next is our target within that market. So what is the target within the Vietnam compost market? You mentioned like different types of soil, right?
Yep.
So what were the 2 different types of soil?
The type of soil, different soil is more sand, less sand inside.
Oh, and then which one is better for us?
I think the question is not better for us, but the question is what kind of sand soil is better for farmer? So the compost.
I mean, which one is more? Which type of soil is gonna farmers with which type of soil are gonna be more interested in our product?
I think on most of the plants, need the compost because the function of the compost to create many benefits for plant. So any plants needs the compost. So it depends on the soil. It's need more compost or less compost. It's the soil is have a high nutrition or high organic matter. It's need less compost. It's the soil is less poor soil is more compost.
All right, but let's say, which do we want to focus on first? More the soil that needs more compost or soil that needs less compost?
Yeah.
So pick one.
The soil usually in the highland is need more compost.
Okay.
Compare if soil in the Mekong Delta is the less compost. Something like that.
Okay, so let's focus on highland. Okay, so out of the 30 million in the total addressable market compost in Vietnam, how much is in highland market?
Yeah, it's the highland market very. In my experience, it's occupy about 60 to 65%.
Okay, so let's say 60%. So that means target market is $18 million. It's 60% of 30 million. Okay,
50.
Now just to estimate. Okay, so within that market now, so now we're looking at the Vietnam Highland compost market. What segment are we going to focus on first? So now we have to segment the market. So what's going to be our first segment?
The first segment I think I focus on the coffee and black pepper, and another one is the vegetable.
Oh, let's pick one. Pick one first.
Pick one first is I will focus on the vegetable.
Vegetable?
Yes, vegetable.
Okay, so out of that 16 million, how much is vegetable?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. 16, I think for vegetable is only 10%.
Okay, so 16 million, 10% vegetable. So our target segment is 1.6 million. Okay, yep. And then now last question is, of the 1.6 million, how much will we be able to capture in the first year?
Yeah, I think starting and for 5 years, I think we can about 20% of share market.
Well, let's say year one.
Let's say year one, I think only 10%.
So okay, so 10% of 1.6 million. So we should have 160,000 in revenue in year one.
60,000 revenue.
10% of 1.6 million.
Yeah, I think if I can share for that is the profit is about totally profit. I think it is about 30%. 30%.
Oh, it's okay. We're not worried about a profit yet. So now we just want to look at the revenue only. So let's say 160,000 of revenue year one.
Sorry, 160,000
because we started out with 30 million was the total addressable market.
Yeah.
So we took
60,000.
60% of that is 60% of the 30 million is 18 million. And then we took 20, we took how much of that? 10%?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so 180,000 now. Okay, so it's okay. The exact number is not important, but let's just say around, let's round it off. We'll say 1.6 million in revenue, 160,000 in revenue in year one. Okay. That's step one. Now, step two. Step two is our bottom up. So bottom up market size. So bottom up market size. What's our revenue model going to be?
Actually, I not understand.
Okay.
What's mean bottom up? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bottom up revenue model means how do we make money? So how are we gonna? How do we? What exactly do we sell, and how do we sell it, and how do we charge for it?
For the market, we will sell to directly to the big farm, B2C and B2B. B2B we also sell to the supplier.
Okay, so we have B2B, we have B2B and B2C.
Yep.
Okay, so for the B2B, how many customers do we think we're going to have in year one?
Yeah, B2B year one about 3% at the moment. There are some person come to us and require B2B, but we also think about that because we have to select the right cooperation, because sometimes it's not good, sometimes it's very good. So I think year one maybe from 2 to 3 supplier.
Okay, so let's say 3, and then and how much do we charge each customer, each B2B customer?
B2B, each customer had to at least 1 year they had to buy at least 200 tons.
Okay, and so 200 ton for 3 B2B customers. Yeah, and how much per ton?
1 ton is 1 ton is about 220 US dollar.
So let's make it we'll make it 200 to make it easy. So they have to buy 200 tons at $200 per ton. So that's $40,000 per customer.
Yep.
Correct. So
yep.
So okay. So times 3, and then so wait, it's 40,000 times 3. So that's equal to 120,000. All right. And then what about the B2C customer?
B2C customer is about 20 customer. 20 customer. Its customer is from 50 to 150. It depends on the big farm or small farm.
Oh, so for the 20 customer, how much are they going to buy?
Yeah, I've write they can buy the one from let's it's better. It's 75 tons per year.
And then do they pay a different price or same price?
Yeah, different price. A little bit higher than.
So they pay what?
It's about 230. Yeah, 230.
So they okay. So okay, so there we have 20 customers and they're buying 75 tons each and they're paying $230 per ton, correct?
Yep.
So wait, so let's see. So this is, so in this case, we have 20 and then 75 and then 230. So this is about, so, okay, this comes out to, this is 345,000. So, and then from B2B, we had 120,000. Okay, so our total, oh wait, so our total bottom-up revenue forecast is 465,000.
Yep.
But our bottom-up was only 160,000.
Yep.
So something's wrong. But this is not a problem. This is not a bug. This, I like to say, this is not a bug in the system. This is a feature in the system because, okay, remember our top-down revenue forecast was 160,000, but our bottom-up revenue forecast is 465,000. So what have we learned now? Now, okay, at this point, let's stop for a minute in our process and think about what have we learned?
Yeah, I think we learned about how we predict the market. So the number, the total number of the market, we had to understand. We had to get the right number, compare the top to down and the bottom up. Should be the right number in the market, so we can make it's suitable. If the information not good, we can make the different.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I feel like what we learned so far is either our bottom up is too high or our top down is too low. So because our bottom up number is much higher than our top down number. So, okay, that's the first thing we learned. But I think the second thing we learned is probably the real number is somewhere in between. So I think we can say a reasonable forecast for year one. It's between 160,000 and 465,000. So now we have a range. Now we have a floor and a ceiling. So what we want to do next is now we want to do what I call iterate and converge. So iterate and converge means that we want to pick one number to anchor on. Meaning what? Like, let's say if 160,000 is our floor and 465,000 is our ceiling, we want to figure out, we want to decide, should our final number be closer to 465 or 160? Now for me, I usually have a preference between, if we look at these two numbers, top down and bottom up, I usually have a preference for bottom up, because bottom up is based on our knowledge of our product in our market. So, yes, I mean, yes, when you're thinking about these 3 B2B customers and these 20 B2C customers, you probably have some idea who they are. You know how much you expect them to buy, and you have some idea how much they're willing to pay. So that's good information versus top down, because top down, it's just about the market in, theoretical customer. This is about our real customer. So I think probably we should anchor around start with the 465,000 as anchor, but recognize that maybe it's too high, because the other way to think about this is our top-down forecast is a forecast of demand, because we're looking at the current spending. So the current spending represents the potential demand for our product. The bottom-up forecast is based on supply. This is what we think is our ability to supply that demand. So right now there's a big mismatch there, because it looks like the demand is too low for our supply. So, but I think probably we made some overly conservative assumptions in our top-down forecast that's leading to this difference. So I think next step is we would go back and say, okay, what was the weakest assumption that we made in our top-down forecast? And we would then adjust that one up. And at the same time, we might also say, what was the weakest assumption we made in our bottom-up forecast? And we adjust that one down. And then we get step 2. So for example, let's say in step 2, instead of 160 versus 465, step 2, maybe we have 200 versus 400. Then we repeat the process. Step 3, maybe we get 350 versus 250. Step 4, you see what I mean? So we keep repeating this process until we get the same result from top down and bottom up. Once we get the same result from top down and bottom up, then we're done. Because now our supply and demand are matched. We have accounted for the demand of our product by supplying 100% of the demand that we can capture. And we have accounted for the supply of our product by matching it to a forecast of demand that takes account of all the available information. So this is the top-down, bottom-up revenue forecast, which is going to give us the 5-year revenue forecast that we're going to start with. Okay, so good job. Thanks for the help there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because when you do the top down, you focus on the one segment market segment only. But when we do the bottom up, it means the B2B, B2C, B and C is they are big market. They are on the rise, not only on the highland, but also on the Mekong Delta. It's on everywhere. If we go from bottom up, B2B or B2C, the customer is different. It's bigger than if we just focus on the highland and focus on the vegetable and focus on the percentage of the vegetable. It's very small, so it should be lower than the bottom up.
Yeah. So that's good. That's good observation. So we want to think about there is choosing our entry segment wisely. Like if the entry segment is overly broad, it's going to be very difficult to capture. So as a small company with limited resources, we want to target the right entry segment, and we want to target a segment that we can reasonably capture. So that's why, but maybe we also learned that geographical segmentation is not the way to go. When we do the top down, maybe we shouldn't focus on one region. Maybe we should focus on buyer type instead of region. So, but this is the way that we can iterate this process to get as good of an answer as possible from both our top down and bottom up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next thing I want to look at is valuation. So we have, let's say we have the revenue forecast, and then we use the revenue forecast to create the rest of our financial model. So now we have our 5-year revenue, income, revenue, expense, income, and cash flow. And now we want to value our startup. So this is a very difficult and important part of the financial modeling for startups. In some way, and I think it's fair to argue that valuation is the most important output from our financial model. Therefore, we're going to spend a lot of time in our financial modeling thinking about our valuation. So how are we going to do valuation for our company? There are many methods of valuing companies that are well established and well understood in financial markets. But unfortunately for us, most of these methods were developed to value publicly traded large companies. Important to note about large publicly traded companies and their differences to our startup or spinoff. For our purposes in this part of the course, the most important difference is the way that these companies create value for shareholders. If you think about the valuation of a company, what does it mean? The valuation of a company means how much is this company worth to its shareholders? And therefore, how much should a new shareholder be willing to pay to purchase shares in this company? So in order to answer that question, we need to understand how does the company create value for shareholders? Because otherwise, there's no meaning in the value of the company. Most companies and most public companies create value for shareholders two ways: through what's called capital appreciation and dividends. So capital appreciation means the value of the company increases after I buy shares in it, and later I can sell the shares at a higher price. Dividends mean the company pays a portion of the profits of the company to shareholders as a dividend. So normally we want to value companies that do both of those, taking into account both of those, and that's how most valuation methods for companies work. But startup and spin-off companies create value for shareholders only one way, which is capital appreciation. So when we value companies using any valuation method, we need to focus on either adjusting the valuation method that we're using to take account of the fact that the startup company only delivers value to shareholders through one of the traditional methods, or we need to use a valuation method or methods that don't make that assumption about the company being valued. So how are we going to do that? These are the 6 most common valuation methods and for companies. And you can see that the first 3, they have a red light next to them, which means we're not going to use these methods because these methods are basically designed for traditional companies, and they're designed in such a way that it's not possible to adjust them to work for startup companies. The 4th and 5th methods, we will be able to adjust for startup companies, so we can still use those. And the 6th method is actually designed specifically for startup or spin-off companies that only deliver value to investors one way, through capital appreciation. So this is a BC method which we will be able to use. So let's talk about the last three methods first: the comparables method, the discounted cash flow method, and the VC method. Before I get to that in more detail, I just want to introduce one last valuation concept, which is pre-money and post-money valuation. So whenever we talk about the valuation of a company, which specifically referring to the current valuation of the company, there are two ways that we can describe that valuation: pre-money and post-money. Pre-money valuation is the value of the company before investment. Post-money valuation is the value of the company after investment. So pre-money and post-money, and they're very closely related because post-money valuation equals pre-money valuation plus investment, and vice versa. Pre-money valuation equals post-money valuation minus investment. The important other point to remember about these two forms of valuation, which refer to the exact same company, but taking two different perspectives, the formula for how much equity goes to an investor is investment divided by valuation, which makes sense because if we're trying to figure out how much equity we should give to an investor for a given amount of investment, it clearly should be equal to the amount of that investment divided by the total value of the company. The only open question there is current value of the company using which, pre-money or post-money. This will always be post-money. So amount of equity that goes to investors will be investment divided by post-money valuation. So first method I mentioned, evaluation, is called the comparables method. How does that work? We use a value that has already been established for a group of comparable companies. And then we can then adjust the valuation of our company based on differences to the comparable companies. So how does that work? Let's say for a compost company, let's say we can find 10 other companies that are selling compost, and we can then calculate the average valuation of those 10 companies. And then we can calculate the average revenue of those 10 companies. That'll give us two numbers, and we can derive a third number from that. What is that? So let's say we find the average valuation is $10 million and the average revenue is $1 million. This means that the average revenue multiple in this market is 10 times. So then we can apply that to our compost company. We can say, okay, on average, a company in this market should be valued at 10 times its revenue. Our revenue in year one is going to be 160,000. And if we multiply that number by 10, we get 1.6 million. So using a comparables valuation method, our compost company should be valued at 1.6 million. That's how comparables work. Now, challenges with comparables valuation are it's probably going to be hard to find valuation for 10 privately traded compost companies in Vietnam. It's likely that data doesn't exist because most of the data that we can find for companies is for publicly traded companies, and there may not be 10 publicly traded compost companies in our market. So we might try to get information for private companies, but it's very hard to get that information. And the other problem is, even if we can find this data for public companies, but we're trying to value a private company, which is different from a public company, so we're going to have to adjust for that. But I like to use a variation on comparables method that solves these problems, because even if we can't get a real basket of comparable companies by product or industry or market, what we can do is we can use what I call a comparable by stage method. So comparable by stage method moves away from specific comparable baskets to assuming that every startup company is comparable to every other startup company based on their stage of development. So in this case, we could say, if this startup is a seed stage company in Vietnam, it should be valued somewhere between $1 and $3 million, because that's how comparable seed stage startups in Vietnam are valued for the most part. So that's called comparable by stage. So we can, if we can get information on real comparable companies, we can use that also. One very common mistake I notice when entrepreneurs use the comparables method to value their company, which we should definitely try to avoid, is picking, instead of using a basket of comparables or a good average of comparables, we use just one company, and that company is a freakish outlier. And then also, the company is almost always a freakish outlier on the too expensive side. So, for example, we find one company in North America or Europe or China that was funded at a very high valuation, and we use that as our comparable, even though it's not a good average. And even though, because it's not a good average, it's therefore not a meaningful comparable for us, but we just laser focus on that one freakish outlier. So this is not a correct way to employ comparables. And I think you can see why, because if we just want to pick one freakish outlying company and we pick a very highly valued company, there's no reason investors just don't pick a freakish outlying undervalued company and apply that to us. So comparables can be useful and valuable, but we need to make sure that we're either comparing to a reasonable basket of companies, or we're using a comparable by stage that makes sense for our company. Okay, our second method of valuation is called discounted cash flow valuation. Now, discounted cash flow valuation is very complicated if you haven't encountered it before. And basically, discounted cash flow valuation assumes that the company will become profitable at some point, and that some portion of the profits will be able to be paid out to shareholders. Now, it doesn't necessarily assume that that this portion will be paid out in dividends. What it does is it assumes that the company has a certain amount of cash that it could distribute to shareholders if it chose. And in this method of valuation, the value of the company is represented in the total discounted value of what are called the free cash flows, which is the cash that could be distributed to shareholders. So another, I think, a way to visualize this, especially if we don't have a lot of experience with this method, you can imagine the company is an perpetual annuity, meaning the company is a type of investment where you buy that investment today, and the company pays you, the investment pays you a stream of return forever. So until you die. And so, for example, you invest in a certain amount in the company. Let's say you invest $1 million in the company today, and then it pays you $100,000 a year forever. So if you know how much the company is going to pay you forever, then you can figure out what's the right price to pay for that company, for that investment today. And that's what we do with discounted cash flow valuation. We model the company, and we calculate how much cash will this company have available to pay to investors, and then we value that stream of payments. Now, you might think valuing the stream of payments is pretty simple, because why don't we just add up all the future payments, and then the total is how much the company should be worth today. The reason we can't do that is something called time value of money. And time value of money means money today is worth more than money you're going to get in the future. This is true for a couple of reasons, but the most important reason is if I have money today, I could invest it. If I could invest it today, it'll be worth more in the future than the same amount of money given to me in the future. What do I mean? Like if somebody gives me $100 today or $100 in 1 year, those two amounts are not the same value, because if I get the $100 today, I could invest it, and 1 year from now, it'll be worth more than $100. By the same token, the $100 I receive in 1 year is actually worth less today than $100, because it can be invested for 1 year. So when I discount future cash flow, what that means is I reduce the value of future cash flow by the amount of interest, essentially, that cash could earn me if I got it today. So that's called discounted cash flow valuation. Discounted cash flow valuation is very useful for startups if it's adjusted properly to take account of the discount rate. So the most common mistake that I see in discounted cash flow valuation is when entrepreneurs do use a proper model for valuing the startup, but they employ the wrong discount rate. And almost always, again, when I say wrong discount rate, it's discount rate is too low, which results in valuation is too high. I think you can see that there's a very common directionality in the errors that entrepreneurs make when they do their valuation. They always make the mistake that overvalues the company. You almost always make the mistake that overvalues rather than undervalues the company. So when you use a discounted cash flow valuation, it's really important to do proper discount rate, because the discounted cash flow valuation formula is very sensitive to discount rate. Most people, when they learn to do discounted cash flow valuation, the examples that they work on have discount rates between 10 and 15%. So that's what they use for their startup or spin-off valuation, but it's way too low. So if you do use discounted cash flow valuation, it's important that you use the right discount rate, which I estimate to be somewhere around 100% rather than 10 to 15%. Okay, so that's method 2. And then method 3 is the VC method. So VC method of valuing your company is actually, this is my favorite method. This is the one that I think gives the most meaningful result, because it is based on the actual return that an investment in your company can generate for startups. So how does it work? In the VC method, we start by understanding that the VC's return, meaning the return to investors, is going to be equal to the exit valuation divided by the current valuation. So if the exit valuation means how much we're going to be able to sell the company for. So we didn't talk about exit strategy until now. So what is exit valuation and exit strategy? When investors invest in your startup or spin-off company, they expect that you, the entrepreneurs, will be providing them with a return on their investment through providing them with an exit for their investment. How does that work? At some point, the company will either go IPO, meaning be listed on a public exchange, or will be the subject of a trade sale, which means the company will be sold to another, typically much larger company, 100% of the shares. So trade sale or IPO are the exit routes for investors in startup companies. In order to value the company today, therefore, we need to understand what do we believe will be the value of the company at the exit. Let's start with let's use an example here of $100 million. So this means that we estimate that the company will be worth $100 million at the IPO or trade sale. That means that my return as an investor in this company is going to be equal to 100 million divided by whatever the current valuation is. So if the current valuation is 2 million and the company sells for 100 million, then my return will be 50 times. If the exit valuation is going to be 100 million and the company is currently valued at 4 million, then my return is going to be 25 times, because 100 divided by 25 equals 4. So this gives us a very powerful tool for valuing our startup. How does that work? We already know what the VC's required return is. So at the seed stage, VC's required return is 30 times. We also now need to take into account dilution, because the return to the investor, although it fundamentally depends on the exit valuation and the current valuation, in order to calculate the real return, we need to adjust that formula for dilution. If we start with a 30x required return and we assume a dilution of 50% prior to exit, this means that the current valuation of the company equals the exit valuation divided by 60. So this gives you a very simple formula for calculating your current valuation. If you can figure out how much is your company going to sell for, if you can have an estimate of how much your company is going to sell for at the exit, then you just divide that number by 60 to get the current valuation. So for example, I already introduced the 100 million exit valuation. If you divide 100 million by 60, that means your current valuation is 1.66 million. If you're going to sell for 200 million, you divide that by 60, and then your current valuation is around 3.3 million. So this is a very handy way to do valuation, and you can see it's very simple, straightforward, easy to calculate, and also it has the special benefit of reflecting actual value to the investor. So those are the 3 valuation methods that we can use to value any startup. I like to do all 3 methods for each startup. So if you're valuing your own startup, I think it's well worthwhile to value the company using each of these 3 valuation methods, which, similar to our top-down and bottom-up approach, should give you the same valuation. Once we do the valuation of our company using 3 valuation methods that all give us the same result, that is going to give us a lot of confidence in the valuation, the same way that we had a lot of confidence in our revenue forecast when we used 2 independent forecast methods. Okay, so that's a valuation and quick introduction to exit strategy. So in today's class, we learned about basics of financial modeling. We learned about basics of valuing companies and also how that relates to our exit strategies. Those are the topics that I plan to cover today. Now, in our next class, so our next class is going to be on Wednesday, and in next class, same time. So next class, we're going to focus on deal terms and term sheet. So this is going to be, in that class, I'm going to talk about the deal terms that we can expect to encounter from investors in addition to valuation. So we talked about valuation today, and next week we'll talk, next class we'll talk about deal terms and term sheets. So hope that everybody got a better idea about how financial modeling works, how that connects to valuation and exit strategy. And I look forward to seeing you back here on Wednesday to learn more detail about the deal terms and term sheets. And hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the investment process at that time. So any questions before we wrap up this morning's class? So, okay, if there are no more questions, I'll end the class on that note, and I will look forward to seeing you back here on Wednesday to talk more about deal terms and term sheets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dolat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.